Oh, the interior is very red. There's so much red leather. It's got lots of nice carbon fibre though. Ooh, and the carbon fibre steering wheel. I think it's quite nice. You find me down at Hilton and Moss, the place where my Challenge Ferrari was repainted. I've come down here today to look at this. Yeah, a Ferrari California, the often overlooked and unloved modern Ferrari. Did you know here in the UK you can now buy one of these cars for the same price as a Golf R? Yep, this is now a 50 grand Ferrari. That feels too good to be true. And when really nice cars are strangely affordable, tends to mean, well, there's usually a reason. So today I kind of want to find out what that reason is. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it was supposed to be Maserati and then Ferrari started. Who cares? It's a Ferrari. And today I kind of want to take it for a test drive, have a look around it and just work out if you've got the budget of a Golf but you want a Ferrari, could you go out and buy a California? I think I would, but I am an unhinged Ferrari obsessive, so probably shouldn't be asking me. But anyway, I mean, it's a pretty car. Don't look at it around the back, but I think it's pretty nice. Not certain I could get used to all this red leather, but there are other specs available. Sounds good. I'm not going to rev too loudly because I'm literally in a village, but Anyway, initial impressions. I am loving this simple steering wheel. We do have a Manettino, one of the earliest iterations of Ferrari's iconic Manettino. Just 3 options: comfort, sport and traction off. I've gone immediately into sport because, well, it's a short test drive and I want to really experience this thing. But apart from that, start-stop button, and that's it. I've got stalks for indicators and the windscreen wipers. It was pre the 458, which introduced all the, you know, buttons on the wheel. So that's really nice. Analog dials. Lots of it is familiar though. I don't think it feels inherently old in here. And quite mad to think that this thing came out just 3 or so years after my Challenge Ferrari. This feels like a big step forward from the 360. I do feel like I'm sitting quite high, and it's got that semi sort of cliched bald man in convertible car sort of vibe. So, but hey, look, I don't have to see myself in the car from behind the wheel. It feels fantastic. Now, my usual Hilton and Moss test route a little bit screwed today because the road is being dug up, so there's endless road works, quite a lot of traffic, potholes, etc. But we're gonna have a good time. And actually, it's a very nice real-world test for this car in the UK. If you watch this channel regularly, you'll know I quite easily get carried away behind the wheel of a Ferrari, and it's happening to me right here, right now. I'm literally like, I should buy one of these things. It's amazing. It's a nice place to sit. This red leather you do not get used to. There's too much of it, but it's carbon fiber, and this infotainment system actually quite functional. I'm sure you could probably get CarPlay and stuff done, and then this nice sort of bridge. I think it's really nice. This was supposed to be very accessible, very usable, very comfortable, and it is. It would be a fantastic Grand Tourer, a car just to live with on a day-to-day basis. But listen to that, that was 4,000 RPM, the red line's just under 8. So as we come out of the village, drop to second in typical Italian flair, and yes, I mean, yes, unbelievable scenes. Okay, it feels a tiny bit floaty, a little bit heavy, with the sort of traditional Ferrari quite direct steering. You've got to slightly think about what you're doing, but it's so enjoyable and engaging. Okay, if I was here in an M4 or a 718 Cayman, would I dynamically be faster and better prepared? Yeah, like sure, but who cares? Compared to a Golf or a Skoda Superb, this thing feels superb. It's a Ferrari, people. It is a Ferrari. If you never hung out with any other kind of sports cars, you'd be like, oh my God, the Ferrari California is unbeatable. Until GR86 did circles around you on track. But I just don't care. This thing's about emotion and accessing Ferrari life for 50 or 60 grand. So cool. This gearbox is sensational. What a machine.
Sempre sarai tu il mio amore.
Well, we're back at Hilton and Moss, and now I'm not sitting in the lovely heated cabin of the California. I've realised it's really cold today. But anyway, the adrenaline of the drive is starting to wear off. I'm not taking back anything that I said, but yeah, I'm probably not going to actually buy this car at the end of the day, which I thought at one point I was going to during the drive a moment ago. But what I have realised is, well, yeah, I think we've all forgotten how good this car actually is. And what we may have also forgotten is how relatively important this car was for Ferrari. This was the first of that kind of era or generation of cars from Renault that we all now love. The 458, the F12, the FF, etc. This was the first mover. This is the first ever Ferrari to be fitted with the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. The first one! This is one of the first cars that had standard carbon ceramic brakes. I think that was introduced in 2008. So lots which is now familiar, that the California was the first car to introduce these things, which is quite mad. But really the main talking point is the engine, because this was the first time that Ferrari had made a sort of front engine GT car, fitted it with a V8, not the V12. It's the F136 engine, which we'd seen in the 430 and we saw in the 458, but this was the 4.3 litre version. Hold on a second. There we go, like a pro. Around 450 horsepower, meant that the car could do 0 to 60 in sort of sub 4 seconds, despite its weight, because it was and it is a sort of heavyish car. I think 1750 kilos, something like that, which at the time and still today is a relatively heavy Ferrari. That's largely down to the folding hard top roof, which I'll show you in a second. But there you can see how far back in the sort of engine bay that engine actually is. But anyway, I'll close it down. We sort of mentioned it already. In terms of design, it's probably not Pininfarina's greatest work, especially considering the other cars that Ferrari made in this period. But the looks, I think, can grow on you, maybe not from behind. It's an awkward rear end. They sharpen things up for the California T, but yeah, I don't know, in the right spec with the right wheels, I don't know, it can come together. I'm going to hop inside. Oh my god, it's so cold today. Interestingly, whilst it was the first in many ways, it was also one of the last to have a Formula One badge on the dash, something that was really part of so many early 2000s Ferraris. But that was celebrating the Constructors' Championship in 2008, which was the last thing that Ferrari won in Formula One. So we haven't seen that badge for a while. Anyway, let me start this thing up, not so that I can put the heating back on, but so that I can show you the very impressive and slightly overly complicated folding roof. So if I push that one there, round the back, that rear boot lid kind of drops back, hinges back, then up comes the metal roof, which I do think means it's slightly a better looking solution than the soft top on the Roma Spider, as an example. There you go, I'm now cocooned inside. I jump out. What it does mean is that you get quite a healthy boot, because this car was supposed to be a fantastic GT car that you could really live with. It's your 2+2 or 2+ people without legs. When you put the roof up, and you can fold that up as well, there you go. You've got lots of space there for luggage now. It is a heavy rear boot lid because of that, so we'll put that back down. Close the door. It's just a car that, well, it was the first Ferrari that was so usable. So we might often think of the 458 as being the first sort of Ferrari supercar that was kind of usable, but this was an early mover for Maranello. I think from new it's sort of £145,000 in this country. So here we are 15 or so years later, now 50 or so grand. Actually not horrendous depreciation when you think of it like that. Anyway, let's go and find out what the horror stories might be, because it's all sort of a bit too good to be true right now. I think we're going to go inside where it's warmer, speak to the team here to understand what goes wrong with the California, what you need to be looking out for before you sign up to potentially that lovely Italian life. I think it looks better with the roof up. I quite like that. That looks pretty smart to me. Now, it's worth me pointing out that the car I'm using in today's video is a particularly good example. Not only is it quite low mileage, it's been well maintained with a fairly full service history, all of which will actually go a long way when buying a modern classic Ferrari, but it does mean that this example is circa £65,000, not £50,000. If you were looking at a higher mileage, lower value car, Mark from Hilton & Moss told me there are 3 big things to watch out for. First up, the roof. Apparently this can go horribly wrong over time and actually end up totally misaligned. If that happens, you could be looking at a £15,000 repair bill. Then there's the gearbox, which is obviously great, but it was a very early version of Ferrari's dual clutch transmission. The software was apparently pretty shoddy, meaning it can lead to issues. If that's ignored over the years, you could end up with a £6,000, £8,000, £10,000 bill. And then finally, the carbon ceramics. Look, they wear out. And when you have to replace them, again, you're going to be looking at north of £10,000 for a full set. If you do find a good example, like this one, then just be aware that general servicing and maintenance will still be a healthy £1,500 a year minimum. Now, I'm fully aware that for some of you, it doesn't matter how positive I am about the California, it's just not going to be the Ferrari for you. I think Ben, the cameraman, is in that camp, especially now you know some of the potential costs. You're just going to be like, yeah, no, absolutely not. So let's discuss some other possible affordable Ferraris. Interestingly, here in the UK, the 360, my beloved 360, remains one of the most affordable Ferraris you can buy. You can still find examples for 50 or 60 grand. I think in Europe and America, they're well north of 100 grand now, I think. But yeah, that's one option. If you want the sort of practicality that the California offers, i.e. a 2+2 and big boots, GT sort of car, 456s, but they are horrific to maintain. I guess you could go older, like a Mondial, that's also a 2+2, or like an old Dino GT4. The thing is, basically, you are going to have to compromise. If you really just despise the way the California looks, if you think it's not a real Ferrari, it does mean you're going to have to buy something older, inherently probably more expensive to maintain, and just less, well, yeah, less up to date. Interestingly, Hilton & Moss got a few Ferraris in here that we can talk about. 355 Spider, obviously a much older car than the California. This is a 2-seat mid-engine sports car. One of the first to have a flappy paddle gearbox, but of course this was the original F1 single clutch automated gearbox, not the DCT. That's 85 grand plus maintenance. I mean, you know, that's inherently a more expensive proposition. The 430 is more intriguing to consider, because like a 360, these are very usable. Whilst it is a mid-engined V8 sports car, it's got a big boot, comfy seats, it's a good cruiser, this car, surprisingly so, but you've got a higher entry point, 86 odd grand, and maintenance again, you know, you're not without your bills. So it's really hard to find something that offers all that California does in as an affordable way, or as a sort of more exciting way. But the minute you get into this kind of stuff, which is California generation, so 458, FF, F12, it's all 100 grand plus. Okay, you can find some FFs for like 70 or 80, but again, big bill. So that's why I just think it's got to be considered, even if you're not convinced by the looks. Of course, we can also talk about the Cali T, which was the replacement, arguably a much better car, but again, you're talking about 75, 80 grand price point. So yeah, I don't know, as I say, even if you're a hater, Ben, it is worth just realizing it's a Ferrari for 50 grand. Anyway, I got distracted because there's lots of other nice cars in here. 991.1 GT3, interestingly, one of the most affordable GT3s you can buy today. So that's also, maybe that's a future video that I should do, looking at these. And this is, I've just been obsessed over this, an Evora GT410, green over tan, 63 grand. Now, if you really hate Californias, this also is a 2+2. I mean, that's a wicked, I mean, that is a great car. I adore that. Right, enough getting distracted by the cars downstairs. Let's get back to the California. And I'm sorry, but in this setting, parked like this, I think this car looks fantastic. I know I've been umming and ahhing about the design of this thing today, but clearly the looks have been growing on me because I came around the corner and I was like, oh, hello. What a whip. I'm still not obsessed with the specific spec of this car, which I found out was actually the launch specification of the California. Ferrari just don't always make the best choices when it comes to their launch specification. So this will be quite a popular spec, but I think I would go, I don't know what, I would do something different. But as the day's gone on, I've just been struggling to think of the reasons as to why you wouldn't buy this as an entry-level Ferrari. I'm not sitting here telling you, you must all go and buy a California. But if you are considering an entry-level or affordable Ferrari, this is a really compelling option because, okay, fine, if you're going to get a good version, it's going to be more like 65 grand, 60, 65 grand. That's what this car is. Super well maintained, great service history, all that kind of stuff. This is 66 grand. But if you're spending that kind of money, your only other options are 360, 456 or 612 Scaglietti. That's really all you're going to look at. There's not much else out there. And for me, with this one, you're getting a far more modern car that comes as standard with carbon ceramic brakes, an iconic Ferrari V8 engine, the dual clutch transmission. That's the big sell, even if it can possibly go wrong and end up with a big bill. When it's working, it's fantastic. The 2+ layout, giving you some practicality and ability to have friends. Nothing better than taking your friends in a Ferrari. The retractable folding metal roof, that's cool. So when it's up, it looks like a coupe, but then you can have all the benefits of a convertible. Relatively good tech, lots of carbon fiber if it's a nicely optioned one. A pretty practical boot for the longer trips. A great soundtrack and accessible, usable performance. 450 odd horsepower. This is like tick, tick, tick. I think it's a win. I'm really struggling to see the downside. So I want to know your thoughts. Maybe I'm mad. Maybe I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I'm a Ferrari freak and spending any time around any of these cars, I'm like, yeah, I would want this one. Is it just me, or have I convinced any of you that it'd be worth considering one of these over a 360, 612 or a 456? Surely I have. But then maybe you're going, no, I'd rather have the Golf R. Well, fair enough. But I'm a fan, so there you go, there you have it, there's my summary. 50 grand California, 50 grand Ferrari, is it worth it? I absolutely think so. Huge thanks to Hilton and Moss for letting me come down and check out this thing. And I can't wait to hear all your comments to hear if I'm an absolute buffoon or not.